I too am very grateful to the Contemporary Music Centre for this lovely opportunity, and of course to the Royal Irish Academy of Music. I have great memories of the Royal Irish Academy of Music. I had my first formal composition lessons here in the autumn of 1971. It's been a wonderful privilege working with these marvellous musicians known collectively as Cassiopeia Winds behind me. I've written 2 wind quintets. As Siobhan said, the first dates from 1975, which was first performed in 1976, and the last one was finished in September of this year. So there's a little gap, a mere gap of 40 years in between. The styles of the 2 quintets, I think, are quite different, as one might expect with a 40-year gap. The first quintet was quite experimental, avant-garde almost, in many ways. I was exploring in particular, I suppose, the layering of sounds. So within the 5 instruments, there are often 2 pairs. For example, at one point it's clarinet and bassoon, and at another point it's flute and oboe. And they're playing independently of each other. And then the horn is doing a 3rd strand independently. So the layering of the sounds was a key issue. We use the term aleatoric to describe that, and I was exploring certainly those techniques. The new quintet is quite different. It's much more, I suppose, disciplined in a way. I feel I'm not really experimenting anymore. At the end of 40 years, I should know somewhat what I'm doing, insofar as any composer ever does. So it's a little bit tighter and it's more classic in form. I'm very much attracted to the idea of duality in music. In my piece, 2 different types of material that sometimes balance and contrast with each other. I've been seeking for this kind of 3rd way, to use that modern term, for some time now. Not to lose the sense of modernity, but also I'm not any longer interested in the avant-garde, really. So it's somewhere in between. The 3rd movement is called Figures in a Landscape. Again, it's a duality. In this case, the landscape occurs every so often. It's very much in contrast to the figures. The landscape is very undulating. And these figures, which are not defined, I see this more in terms of like an abstract painting rather than actual people appearing in the landscape. But they're very clearly etched, and they come in pairs. Initially, we have the bass clarinet, which Deirdre has now moved on to here, and the horn as a pairing. And a little later, we have the oboe and the flute as a pairing, and the bassoon gets plenty to do as well. I think you'll clearly distinguish the sections that are meant to be landscape and the sections that are meant to be the figures in the landscape. So the format is what in musical terms is very simply called a rondo. The landscape recurs perhaps 4 or 5 times, and in between the various figures clearly etched and interacting with each other. So that's the concept behind the 3rd one.
Thank you.